Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. Welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to have Litmus A. Freeman back to our show. And we're excited to have him here. And he has shared with us about Project Freeman. And now we're here to talk about some other things. So welcome so much back to our show, Litmus.
Thanks, Enolia. It's a great pleasure to be with you again.
And I wanted to talk to you about astrology and astronomy, and you have this beautiful word for it. So I'm going to turn that over to you of why you call it that and why it's important that we pull them together.
Yeah, great. I love this stuff, so I'm very happy. My inner child is excited, and my left and right brains are dancing around. So yeah, they love it. Yeah, I call it astronomology. So it's a bit of a mouthful when you first come across it because you're not used to saying it. But once you get used to it, it's kind of rolls astronomology. It kind of rolls off the tongue once you get used to it. So yeah, it's all about bringing the more left brain kind of scientific data, logic driven aspects of astronomy back together with the more metaphysical and spiritual and creative aspects of astrology, and just putting them back together, as they always used to be in the higher ages of consciousness in the great year. I think you've seen my session on the great year now with CPNC, so
Yes.
hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I absolutely know what you're talking about. And I think it's very important that people understand and our audience understands the fact that the two were pulled apart and they shouldn't be apart.
That's
That
right. Yeah.
they're put together, that one defines the other, and one without the other is like, putting together half a puzzle and not putting together a whole puzzle. And actually, it wasn't until I've taken some of your classes, of which that beautifully placed all of the puzzle pieces in place, that I realized that was the missing bridge. That was the missing point, was the fact that I kept being taught those particulars separately.
Yeah.
So give us just a little bit of a foundation of why the two are put together, and the understanding of cycles.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you've got the tagline, where spirituality meets humanity, and I love that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're in sync on this. And I love to meet people who get it like I do. It's all about the two sides of the brain, the sacred masculine and the divine feminine, and the positive and the negative, and bringing the dualities together in the middle, and the Holy Trinity. It's all that stuff. So yeah, I talk about in part 3 of Project Freeman, I talk about the bringing back of science and spirituality together for a sciential experience. It's just, I
Mhm.
love word plays. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, all of part 3 of Project Freeman is really the Hermetic arts. So it's astronomology, it's alchemy, and it's basically kind of ascending. All is one. Um, so it's really important, as you say, to put them back together, because otherwise you just confused. It's like someone's covering one eye or blocking one ear or something, or you just know you're not getting told the whole picture. And of course, then we have the whole divide and conquer thing we talked about last time, where, some of these kind of entities who like to control everyone, uh, they, was it the hierarchy enslaving you? They like to, divide and conquer and get the astronomers arguing with the astrologers and those things we talked about last time. So I think a great antidote to that, is to just recognize that they are one. And we're all one, right? And we're all one with the cosmos, and as above, so below. So what we see in the macrocosm is reflected in our microcosm, and what we see in our macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm below us, you know, within us. So, and then you get this whole fractal thing. So yeah, astronomology just kind of came to me. And you know what's really great about the fact we're talking today, is that today and yesterday we've got a major conjunction which only happens every 12, 13, 14 years between the planet Jupiter and the planet Uranus. And you know what's really cool to do when we get these conjunctions coming back around is to kind of look back till the time when this started, you know, when the thing that's conjunct now, when was it conjunct last time, you know?
Okay. And will
So
you share with
maybe,
us? Yes.
yeah, sure. I mean, maybe we talked, I don't remember which interview it was now, but I talked about the eclipse, moon in Aries eclipse, solar eclipse.
Okay, so it
And we
was not this one, so please do talk about the eclipse and branch us in.
okay, so the recent solar eclipse we had was previously happened in the same degree of Aries 19 years previously. So for that, we were looking back to the 8th of April 2005. And this one was on the 8th of April 2024. And yeah, they were in the same degree of Aries and obviously on a new moon because it was an eclipse, solar eclipse. So, you know, that shows you how this 19-year cycle works between the sun and the moon. So that's called the Metonic cycle, but that's just because it was named after a Greek astronomer called Meton. And it's not like he came up with it, but he kind of popularized it, you know. So it's basically the eclipse cycle, because it takes 19 years and 235 lunations for the sun and the moon to come back to where they start off. So if you take a point in time and space, you know, so I know you're into the quadrivium. The last of the four parts of the quadrivium is astronomy, right?
Astronomy, yes.
Because that's the study of number in space and time. And if we do that with the sun and the moon, I mean, an eclipse is a great time to do that because they're perfectly aligned. You know, you've got the sun with the moon eclipse in it. So if you take that point, 19 years later, it's going to be in exactly the same spot, pretty much. Okay. So we were talking about the eclipse and how we were looking back 19 years to when that happened in the same degree of Aries 19 years ago. And that reveals a lot of things. You know, I found that amazing. Like you look back to what was going on in your life then, and you can look at what house it's in your birth chart,
Right.
and what sign it's in, and all those energies tell you something about what was going on then and what's come to fruition now, you know. So we can do the same thing with where we are right now with Jupiter and Uranus. So the last time that happened was, let me just look at my notes here in my journal.
Okay.
Yeah, so the last time that happened was it started on the 7th of April 2010. Okay. So interestingly, just the day before the eclipse occurred again on the 8th of April. And it was exact in the first degree of Aries on the 8th of June that year, and then again in the 28th degree of Pisces on the 18th of September that year, and then again on the 4th of January 2011 at 27 degrees Pisces. And that's because of the movements of the two planets, and sometimes they go retrograde from our perspective. So they appear as if they're going backwards from our perspective. So we had three conjunctions of those two planets back then. So you know what you can do is look at what house in your chart that is, and which house is it in now? You know, I mean, what are we talking? Like 13 or 14 years later, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So for me, this was amazing. Before I go into what it kind of means, do you want to ask me anything about the houses or the chart or?
Yeah, for our studio audience, because they will not understand the difference between the house, the constellation, and the zodiac. And thanks to you, I have clarification on all of those pieces. So if you can just give us a little bit brief overview so that people aren't lost, that they understand.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So in our astrological birth charts, it's basically a circular um, picture, and it's basically a picture of the sky around the Earth with the Earth in the middle and you in the middle. Actually, the chart is based around you being at the center of your universe, and that's applies to all of us, whoever's chart we're doing. So we've got us in the middle, the Earth around us, and then the sky around the Earth, and that's divided into the zodiac. And that's the tropical zodiac. So as you know now, maybe if people are watching this and thinking, what the hell is he on about? They can go and look at the session we did with CPNC and clarify for themselves what the zodiacs are, you know.
Right.
But basically, yeah, as you said, there's constellations and there's signs and there's houses. So what does it all mean? Well, basically, when in our birth charts in the West, we divide the sky into 12 equal 30-degree sections. And that's basically dividing the Earth's orbit around the sun. So 1 year. So we're basically dividing 1 year up into 12 equal 30-degree sections. And we call those signs. But we could just as easily call them months.
Right.
Because although the term month comes from the month, it's come to mean a 12th division of the year. You know, most people call a 12th division of the year a month, even though it's not quite accurate because you can get 13 moons in a year.
Right.
And that, you know, there's no point trying to measure years in moons because the moon measures months and the sun measures years. Okay. So yeah, what we do is we divide the sky into 12 equal sections, and that's what the signs are. And those signs, they're named after the zodiac constellations that the sun goes through. But those constellations are way out in space outside the solar system, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas obviously our orbit around the sun is inside the solar system. So basically the tropical zodiac is the 12 months of the year in a seasonal calendar within our solar system. And that's what you'll find around the outer circle of your birth chart. Okay. So forget about the constellations now and the stars because they're nothing to do with a tropical birth chart reading. Okay.
Right.
If people maybe in India or in the East are watching this, they tend to follow sidereal astrology there. And what that is the same thing. It's the sky divided into 12 equal sections, but that's of the stars way out in space, okay? So not within our own garden, if you like. It's like out in the
Right.
country. Okay. So we're talking about our own garden, our own backyard, okay? And in our own backyard, we got some guys hanging out, and they're called Mercury and Jupiter and Neptune and all, you know, and they're all running around in circles around the garden, okay? So yeah, in your chart, you've got those signs. And you know, they're Aries and Taurus and Gemini and so on. But then in the center of the chart, around us in the middle, we've got another circle, and that's basically the Earth. And we need to know what time we're born to do an accurate chart because the time we're born tells us where the Earth was in its anti-clockwise rotation at that on that day, right? So that gives us a particular orientation for the center circle in relation to the signs around the edge, okay? Now, we also divide the circle of the Earth up into 12 sections. but they're not typically equal unless we use an equal house method. All right.
Right.
But most people don't use an equal house method. So we get, you know, the Earth is tilted, right? And it spins on
Right.
its axis tilted. So
Yes.
depending at the time and place you were born, there's going to be a certain tilt to that middle circle. And then you get different size divisions based on where you were and what the tilt of the Earth was and everything at that time, okay? So anyway, we have 12 divisions, though, in the center, and they're called houses. And the houses correspond to the 12 signs of the year, okay? So the first house corresponds with Aries, and the second house corresponds with Taurus, and the third house corresponds with Gemini, and so on. So now, if you like, how I kind of explain this is the houses are like the signs for the individual, okay?
Right.
And the signs are like the houses for the whole planet collectively. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
as above, we know astrology is an emetic art. So as above, so below, the law of correspondence applies. And so we've got the signs in the sky around the Earth, the 12 divisions of the zodiac. They're the houses for the whole planet. So Aries is the first house for the whole planet, and Taurus is the second house for the whole planet. But in the middle of our chart are the houses just for us uniquely based on where we were born and the time we were born. And those are like our signs individually. So our first house is like our Aries sign, and our second house is like our Taurus sign, and so on, okay? So as above, so below. But it's the relation of the rotation of the inner circle to the outer circle that gives us our unique energy mix, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because most people, when they're born, they don't have their first house aligned with Aries, the sign, you know, and they don't have Taurus aligned with the second one, and so on. So you have to look at your chart, and then you can see which house you have with which sign, or which sign you have with which house, whichever way you want to think of it. And that gives you a mix. So, for example, I have the sign of Leo rising at the time I was born. So my ascendant sign, which is the start of my first house, is Leo. Now, the first house is all about the self. Like Aries, the sign is all about the self, okay? But my first house of myself has the energy of Leo influence in it, yeah? So that
Right.
makes me very creative because Leo is the sign of creativity, as is the fifth house, because the fifth house goes with the fifth sign.
Right.
Yes, right.
Right.
So that makes me selfishly very creative because I have Leo energy on my first house. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And then you basically go around your whole chart looking at which signs you've got on which houses, yeah?
And each relationship within each house. So
Exactly.
Leo in Aries, Leo in Scorpio, Leo in a particular house, if your
In the
chart.
house, yeah. So not so much Leo in Scorpio, but Leo, say, on the first house, Leo on the,
Okay. In
yeah.
the second house.
Okay, so
Okay.
we have to relate the house to the sign, yeah. Now,
Okay.
the reason I explain all that is because if you want to look at this big conjunction we've got right now between Jupiter, who's the big daddy, he's the big wise old geezer of the solar system in our backyard, okay? So he's the guy we go to for fatherly advice and wisdom, okay? And you may also know him as Jove or Zeus or Thor. You know, he has a few names, but in Hindi, he's called Guru. And this is where we get Guru from, because it's Jupiter energy. It's the big daddy wise old guy.
Okay.
Right. So big daddy guru wise old guy is conjunct Uranus, who's like the crazy, rebellious, individual, freedom loving, running around guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you know, but this is where astronomology comes back in, because if we look at the astronomy of Uranus, we look at the way he rotates. You know, he doesn't rotate upright. He rotates over 90 degrees, tilted over. So his North
Ah,
Pole is pointing down like this, below an
okay.
equator, an imaginary equator, and he's spinning on his side like this. And he's the only planet who does that. So, you know, he's the rebel. He's like, I'm going to do things my way. You know, I'm not going to do things your way. I'm not doing the same as the rest of you guys. You know, I'm going to do it different, right? So there you go. And that's why in astrology, symbolically, the energy of Uranus is very rebellious, individual, nonconformist, you know, all of that stuff.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Whereas Jupiter is the biggest planet, you know.
Right.
Um, all the planets get bigger pretty much until you get to Jupiter, and then they start getting smaller again. And we
Right.
see this in our own lifetime as well. You know, we grow to a peak, but I know, I mean, my dad was 88, I think, when he died. And every time I saw him as he got older, he was smaller and smaller, you know, and smaller.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, you know, like the solar system, he grew to till he was his Jupiter when he was his biggest. And then he went down to Saturn size, and then he went to Uranus, and then Neptune, and then, you know, and then he was
Yeah.
pretty small. And you'll see this as we get older, we tend to get bigger and smaller. So, you
And what I
know, yeah,
love that you did, what I absolutely love that you did is that the characteristics of the cycles is what is implied about the planet. So a lot of people will talk about how it's kind of woo-woo, and I'm not quite sure where you're getting this information. But we're talking about cycles and cycles to an infinitesimal, explanation or explication. So if
yes,
you take the time to understand and learn that it's the cycles of what the planet is doing, how the planet behaves, and everything else is what we're getting for the implication of when you're talking about astrology from
right,
an astrological side. That's
absolutely.
where it's coming from. It's not
Yeah,
something that was made up.
no.
And that's one of the key points of your astronomology.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you brought me back on track to cycles, because you did have that in your question, right? And then I
Yes,
love
I
to go
did.
off waffling on lots of tangents,
It's
but
okay. It's okay.
yeah, you know, it's just the way my mind works. I got a lot of Uranus, you won't be surprised to hear in my chat. So
Mhm.
I have the rebellious, crazy, non-conformist planet in my first and second houses, depending which chart system I use. So yeah, the Uranus is strong in this one, you know. So so don't try and pin me down, you guys, you know. But yeah, cycles. I'm glad you mentioned cycles, because it's all about cycles, as you say.
It's all about cycles.
It's all about cycles. We have a cycle, we have a monthly cycle, we have a yearly cycle, we have a Mercury cycle, Venus cycle, Jupiter, Saturn, all of them. We all have those cycles in our life, because that's their cycles, as above, so below. Yeah. You were
Right. And
going
I'm
to
going to
say
take you
something.
off chart just for a moment,
Okay.
because the planet is in perfect rhythm. The planets around us and that surround us are in rhythm. The stars around us are in their rhythm. The moon and the sun are in their rhythm. But we as a individual are not in our rhythm, because the calendar, the Gregorian calendar that we use, is not aligned with the rhythm of what we do and how we operate. Will you talk
No,
about that a little
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that you brought that up.
bit?
Because, you know, I mean, that's where I came in, as you know, with all this stuff. I created a
Yes.
calendar that was in sync with nature, and started living by it 12 years ago. And it really changed my life, you know, and it put me back in sync with nature. But as you say, unfortunately, the calendar most people use in the world, because of America's domination and previously Britain's domination in the world, yeah, the Gregorian calendar, as you say, is not in sync at all. So if we're, and of course the clocks aren't in sync with the day-sun cycle either, generally. So yes, everything's in sync with each other except us, you know. So because of course all the animals and the plants and the nature on our planet, they're all in sync with the planet and the sun and the moon and the stars and the planets and the solar system, because they don't have clocks and calendars. They just have their natural circadian, as for us, the circadian rhythms that our bodies follow. You know, our body follows the circadian rhythm of the sun. So yes, as you say, this is why there's so much stress in the world, I believe, because if we could just sink, you know, just sink in, it would just calm everything and we'd all align. And, you know, right now, it's like we're at a party and there's one record playing called The Music of the Spheres, and everyone's dancing to a different song, you know?
Yeah.
No one's dancing together with the rhythm and the vibe, you know. Everyone's doing different things. And if you walked into that party and you saw everyone doing that, you'd think, no, I don't think I'm going to stay at this party, right? I'm going to go find another
Right.
party. These guys don't look like they know what they're doing, you know. It's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, but the point, coming back to the cycle then, is that we used to be in sync with nature a long time ago. Okay, so if people want to check out the first CPNC session about the Great Year, we talk about the Great Year cycle there, the 24,000 year cycle of the rise and fall of human consciousness and where we are in it. And if this is the cycle and the golden age is at the top and the Kali Yuga, Iron Age of ignorance is here, we're only kind of here, you know. We're not far off the bottom, about 1,500 years out of 12,000 to go up to the top again. So it's still quite low in vibration and consciousness, but we're ascending. So more and more of us every day are waking up and saying, why am I getting up in the dark to go to this job I hate and it doesn't fulfill me creatively in any way, you know?
Mhm. Yes,
Right?
I
And
do.
yeah, right. And we're thinking, why? I don't want to do this anymore. And we're starting to question everything. And that's all we got to do, is just keep asking questions. So, and yeah, the Gregorian calendar came into the world during the bottom of this cycle of consciousness in what's known as the Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age to the Greeks. And it's called the Age of Ignorance. And it's when man is at his lowest vibration and is very competitive and warrior-like and warlike and dominating and aggressive, doesn't live very long and isn't very tall and isn't in tune with nature and the cycles. Luckily, we have left that behind about 300 years ago, but only fully in 1900 in the Gregorian system. Okay, so not that long ago, we fully left that age behind. You know, not much over 100 years. So we have to bear that in mind, and it does put things in perspective. But you know, if we go back across to the other side of that cycle, when consciousness was descending, where did we come to? We come to ancient Greece. Okay, so we're now level coming up where Greece was going down. So it's a great time to get into Greek mythology, check out how Greece worked, check out the language, how the language works. Go and visit. I'm going to go visit Greece this year. I've
Excellent.
had a call in to do that on a new moon intention I was setting. So I really want to immerse myself in the Greek stuff, because if you go back to the Greeks, they're before the Romans, okay? And the Romans were it, the whole of the Roman Empire system, everything was all Kali Yuga. It was all
Yeah.
Age of Ignorance. It was all about the Roman Empire dominating the world and taking over countries and making them conform to their way of living and all of this kind of stuff. And that they had to use their calendar and their law system and their money system and their trading system of contracts and all those things that go with the Roman Empire that we're still doing now, if we're still in the matrix, okay?
Yeah.
So if you really want to break free of the matrix, yeah, you might need to change your job, or you might need to leave your job, probably. You might need to set up your own business, or just start giving freely to the universe and see what the universe gives back. All of those things. But also, I think if you don't change the system that you're living by, nothing's gonna really, really change fully, you know? Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
change, you'll have some big changes. But as you say, if we're all still stuck in this Gregorian system from Pope Gregory and the Roman Empire, you know, when are we going to ascend in consciousness? Like next Tuesday, you know? It's like,
Exactly, exactly. And I want to highlight, just because this really clicked for me, and so I want to emphasize this. When you talk about the Kali Yoga and you talk about the time and that we're at our lowest time, what I want our audience to understand is that we as individuals, as people, actually read our height of cycle of when we're most intelligent and our height of cycle when we're most low. And so that when you're talking about the time of Kali
Kali
Yuga,
Yuga, yeah.
Kali Yuga, thank you. Kali Yuga.
It's not hallelujah, it's Kali Yuga, yeah.
That you're talking about, that we were at our precipice of low when these things were created, not our precipice of high intelligence and height of when we're thinking the best, where we're creating the best and everything, but at our all-time low. And
Absolutely.
so in that cycle of low, all these things were created, and that's what we're calling the matrix. This is why so many people are miserable. We're stuck in this routine because it was defined at the lowest time. We attached onto it, and we never did our homework to understand that these things were created by the Roman Empire at the lowest point under
Yep,
Pope
yep.
Gregory, and that this is what we're operating our lives by.
Absolutely, Enolia. You got it in one. And of course, not just that, but also the three Abrahamic religions all came from the Kali Yuga. The first being Judaism, the second Christianity, and the third Islam. And I'm not attacking anything to do with those belief systems or anyone who follows them at all. We're all free to do whatever we want. And what I find is a lot of good spiritual stuff in those texts, but there's also a lot of confusion and contradiction and not so good stuff, right? So but then you think, well, why does the Bible contradict itself so much, you know? And why is this Old Testament God so evil and vengeful and kind of wants people to kill everyone and stuff like this? Well, it's Kali Yuga, you know?
Okay.
If you put and you go, okay, it's Kali Yuga, okay, no, it makes sense, you know? So really in Kali Yuga, you have to really concentrate, really focus and try and find the golden nuggets of wisdom, of spirituality in amongst all the other stuff that's got chucked in there, you know? So
Right.
yeah, so you're absolutely right, you know, maybe we're following a belief system from Kali Yuga, or we're following the matrix structure from Kali Yuga, from the Roman Empire. But whatever it is, we're only really going to be free and really raise our vibration if we get away from those things, right? And start, we're not in Kali Yuga anymore. But the system wants to keep us there, you know?
Right.
The system likes
Right.
Kali Yuga because it's easy to control people when they're ignorant and they don't check out and don't do their own research and they don't realize they're stuck in a calendar that takes them out of sync with nature. And they think, oh, I can just do all the things I see on the internet, but I can keep doing the 5-day week and have the 2 days weekend. And and I'm going to go shopping because it's Saturday, but now I'm going to have a rest day because it's Sunday. But my body doesn't feel like doing that. That's just what I've been controlled and conditioned and programmed to do all my life since I was a kid, you know? So yeah, if we look back over to the other side, to the Greeks, they're before the Romans. They didn't have the Roman system. So first we got to look at what did Greece do, you know, and what were they? And they had great philosophers, right? That we still talk about, like Socrates and Aristotle and Plato and all these famous people. So we got to look at what those guys were saying, you know, and study
Right.
that. And and they don't teach that to kids anymore, any of that
No,
stuff,
they don't. No, they
right? But
don't.
this
And
is
then who
where,
they studied. On top of
yeah,
that, who they studied. You
right.
know, you're going to go
And
back to Egypt. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And this is where the trivium and the quadrivium comes back in, because
yeah.
that's from the Greeks, right? So the trivium teaches you how to think, not what to think, how to think. And the
How to
quadrivium opens you up to number and space and time, as you know. So yeah, let's do a chat about that one day, because I love that stuff.
absolutely.
But just to
So just
finish this point, sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm on a bit of a roll now. But so yeah, if we go, we know Romans are Kali Yuga. So we want to, like, don't trust anything this Roman, right? They're like, just put a big caution warning stamp, on that one, and check it out before you do anything with that stuff. Um, but the Greeks were higher in consciousness. So let's go back there. And then, of course, as you mentioned, before the Greeks, we had the Egyptians. And yes, the Romans took some of the Greek stuff, but they actually kind of, can I swear at all on this program?
Yeah, it's an adult program.
Okay, well, basically the Romans took a lot of good shit from the Greeks and fucked it up. um, and the Greeks obviously took a lot of good stuff from ancient Egypt as well. And if you look at that workshop I did, I show how the Egyptian civilization just overlaps with the start of the Greek civilization, and then how
Yeah,
the Romans picked that up later and stuff. And then if you go back way back up into the higher Silver Age and the Golden Age of consciousness, you're going back into ancient India and the Indus
mhm.
Valley and all of that amazing culture. So I'm going to Greece first. I've been to Rome. Okay. I'm going to Greece next. Then I'm going to Egypt. And then I'm going to go to India. So I want to
You,
work my way back up, because if we go back to ancient Greece, guess what? They had a calendar of 12 divisions of 30 days, divided into 3 sections of 10 days each, exactly the same, repeating perennially, and then they had 5 extra days to make up the year. And apart from one small difference, that's the system that I independently came up with in my van without any internet or any knowledge of calendars, just based on the numbers, the math
the
that
math,
works in the place where we live in space-time, okay? And of course, when I did that, when I went and researched calendars and found that I'd come up with something that was used in ancient Egypt pretty much, I was blown away, I was like, well, I must be doing something right. So
right,
yeah, but
right,
that system kept them in sync with the cycles of the cosmos and the solar
right,
system and everything, right?
right.
So, and of course, and then if you go into ancient India, they didn't have a 7-day week either. The
Mhm,
7-day, I call it the slaving day week. Okay.
mhm.
There's 7 days and it's all about slaving. So you got to slave for 5 or 6 days. And then if you're good, you might have 1 day rest.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, so if we only got rid of one thing from the calendar, if we just got rid of the slaving day week, we would all see a difference overnight, I'm sure, you know.
yeah. So
And
let's bring this back.
this is starting to happen, yeah.
Yeah, let's bring this back full circle to the great conjunctive, because we
Okay.
were still in the background for the great conjunction that's taking place. Will you just bring
Mm-hmm.
it forward with that?
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Well done. Yeah, so yeah, right now we've got Jupiter conjunct Uranus, and that's in 20 degrees, 50 minutes of Taurus, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if there are people watching who know their birth chart and they've got their birth chart, even if they don't really know how it fully works, if you've got your birth chart, and if you haven't, it's very easy to get from a Cafe Astrology or astro.com or anywhere online. If you look on that chart and you find where Taurus is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then you find 21 degrees of Taurus, then you'll see that's the degree right now where Uranus and Jupiter are conjunct, having a little dance together.
Okay.
And then you just need to see in which house going into the center of your chart. In which house is that for you? So what does that energy mean for you individually? You know, we all collectively share the energy of the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus, okay? But then individually, it depends how it affects us based on the house it's in, okay? Because the houses represent the areas of our lives. So what is a conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus all about? Well, as we heard earlier, Jupiter's the big daddy guru and Uranus is the rebel guy. Now, Jupiter is the biggest planet, so he's all about expansion. And we know that Uranus is the nonconformist. So when we get those together, we get a chord. Yeah, okay. So we get a chord, okay? You know, if you get more than 2 or 3 notes together, you get a chord. And of course, a chord means an agreement coming together. Right. So it's a lovely word to use.
Yeah.
Right. So what that means is Jupiter is going to expand the Uranus energy of expressing with joy our individuality, what makes us what we are, right? But expressing it to the collective and telling everyone how we're different and how we don't conform to the matrix. Well, I do that by using a completely different calendar, and I use solar time instead of a clock. Okay, so amongst other things. But you know, whatever it is for you, express it, like shout it out. You know, this is how I'm unique and brilliant and different, and this is my mission while I'm here on this incarnation, right? And yeah, and it's about individuality, yeah, all of those things around us, right? And they're going to be expanded. So, well, they are being expanded right now. And actually, these 2 planets started coming together in the Smegorian-Gregorian system. It was 24th of February, all right? Now, that is the 6th of Pisces in the nature calendar, in the Zodiac calendar. Basically, in my universal celestial calendar that I use, we're talking about 6 of Pisces, all right? But in the Roman matrix calendar, it's the 24th of February. So this energy where we are right now started then, okay? And it started building up. Now, I don't know about you or anyone else out there, but I certainly around that time started feeling really energized. And the energy just grew and grew and grew all the way through the Aries equinox into the start of this new UCC Zodiac astrological year. And with the first full moon of the year and the new moon and the solar eclipse, and it just kept getting stronger and stronger. You know, and I've been waking up in the middle of the night with getting downloads from the universe and like all this amazing, you know, what I call my rising revelations. Yeah. And I hope other people have been feeling that. I do love Pam Gregory's videos. She's an astrologer. Yes. And what I like about Pam is she does bring in the astronomy as well, not just the astrology. And she says, you know, astrology isn't about fortune telling and, you know, what job am I going to get and which am I going to get a new car? It's not about that. Okay, that's Kali Yuga astrology. That's like Fairground Attraction magazine astrology. All right. Right. But what astrology really is psychological. So it really explains our psychological makeup from an energetic point of view. And we put that together with our DNA from our parents and our hereditary traits and the nurturing we had in our environment growing up as children and the lessons we learned as we grew in society. And that's collectively, you know, what makes us what we are. And our birth chart tells us what that astrological and astronomological energy is that makes us partly what we are, okay? Right. So that's what we can look at. And this conjunction is going to activate these energies within all of us, you know, the expansion of the expression of individuality, we can look back to the last time this happened in 2010, 11, and see what we'll be doing then and where have we got to now. And we can look forward then to the next time this is going to happen, which is going to be in September, which of course should be the 7th month, not the 9th month. Okay, September. But that's another story.
Yes.
So September the 8th, 2037. So in 13 years and a bit time is when this conjunction is going to happen again. And it's going to happen in Cancer. This time it's happening in Taurus. And last time it happened at the end of Pisces and going into Aries, okay? So the energy changes. So Taurian energy is a very earthy, sensual energy, okay? So Taurus is the middle month of spring. It's all about the maypole and the fertility and chasing the girls and all of that stuff and celebrating life and new growth and new life and flowers and lambs being born and all of those things. And yeah, sensual, fertile, practical beauty. It's ruled by the planet Venus, the planet of love. So, you know, so with these guys, with Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, this is what's expanding as well, love, right? So over the next days coming until, let me have a look. I think it's like, so this is my calendar.
Okay.
All right. So the conjunction is going to run until the 9th of Gemini, which is the 30th of May in the Smegorian Roman matrix control system calendar. So we can expect to carry on feeling an expansion of love, an expansion of earthy sensuality, love of being in the garden, connecting our bare feet on the grass and all of those things, and hugging people and sharing love and expressing our individuality, our independence and our freedom and all of those things. So let's have a great time, guys. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I can't believe we're coming up on an hour.
No way.
Yes, I was like, I want more time, and I'm looking at it, and I know what time we started, so we're coming up on an hour already. What would you say to those people who dare to look at astrology and astronomy, or how you put it as astronomology?
Astronomology, yeah.
Yes, and advise them, because I'll tell you what I would advise them. I'm going to actually do this. I always understood parts and pieces, and it wasn't until I took your class and your classes that it truly came together. And my thoughts are, you know, stop making decisions or judgments based on pieces of information, but to do the work. To do the work, understand the entirety of what it is that you're dealing with, so that you are informed. Because I can tell you, with the pieces here and the pieces there and the pieces here and the pieces there, I was ill-informed.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand, and I understood that I didn't have it all. So I've always just kind of put it aside. And, you know, we met, you came along, we met through CPN, that's Conscious People Network. And we basically said, you know, you offered the class, and it was complete eye opener. And I'm going to ask your permission to be able to put your 2 courses or your 3 courses in the description box, so that people have the opportunity to click on them and learn from them if they want. Okay.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was an eye opener, and I learned so much. So excellent. What would you suggest or leave people with as it pertains to astronomology?
Yeah, as you say, I think now there's attention spans have got shorter. If you can't get everything in a 2.5-minute YouTube video, people don't want to watch it, kind of thing. So we're told, but is that really true, you know? So
I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. And actually, if you can only hold your focus for 2 minutes, I don't really even want to talk to you, because that means that I'm sorry. I want to talk to people who can hold their focus.
Right. Okay, exactly. So I don't go with that. I think maybe there's an element in society who are like that. Um, but it's not everyone, and it's not the majority. And back in the day, you'd go to the library, you'd find the reference book, you'd read the whole chapter, you'd make notes, right? You
Yes.
wouldn't just put on a 2.5 minute YouTube video that tells you a little bit of the puzzle and then go and have a coffee and forget about it and do something else. So yes, I would my advice to anyone would be thoroughly immerse yourself in the subject. Treat it like a project. Um, if you want to really understand the energies that you were born into and that still affect you, because the planets still affect each other, and the sun affects them all, and they affect the sun and the earth and the moon. Everything affects everything else because we're all one, right? It's all one holistic system. So if you want to check that out and what that means for you, yeah, do the work. Don't just watch YouTube videos. If you're gonna, yeah, watch an hour and a half, 2 hour thing, and then another one and another one, and go through it from the start to the finish and really understand it, and it will change your life. And if you do that with astronomology, it will put you back in sync with the nature and everything else. And you can
Thank you
use my
so
calendar
much.
to do it if you want to.
Yes.
That's the universal celestial calendar. Because
Yeah.
I've got one here, and all I put on here is astronomology. That's all that goes on there. So I can see what's happening when and what's coming up and which house it's in. And you know what? It's amazing how in sync you find yourself to be when you do this.
It's
It's like,
true.
I guess it's like a group of women all going to live in the same house together, and they find that their menstrual cycles all synced with each other
Think up.
and the moon. And that just
Yes.
happens naturally when we're taken away from all the other bullshit.
Yes.
But
Yes.
right now,
Yes.
we're not far out of Kali Yoga, and we're still trying to get out of the bullshit. So,
Yes.
yeah, do the work.
And this idea that we live in a world where we have to have everything quick, fast, and in a hurry, this in and of itself is conditioning of the matrix. And I really want to say this because people are
Yeah,
like, oh, if it's not in a 30-second clip or a 45-second clip, you're going to lose their interest. But the bottom line is that if you are an intelligent person that truly takes what they're looking at and looking for in depth and seriously, you're not going to get it in a 20-second clip. The
no,
experts out here, the experts that you have to challenge, I'll tell you right now, they're not taking it in a 20-second clip. They're doing lifetime works. And
yeah,
they're reading every book that they can find on it. They're reading every expert that they can lay their hands on. And anything that you want to prove, disprove, or anything, you are going to have to submerge and do research. You're going to have to take the time
right.
to learn. So don't allow the media to inform you that this is the most that you can take, and therefore this is how you have to conform.
That's
And
right.
that's the rebellious part of me too.
Yeah,
Okay, it's
that's
right
your
here.
Uranus. I'm going to look at your chart and see what's going on there. Okay.
Because we have to take the time. We have to do our work. We have
Yeah,
to study, and it is truly, truly, truly important that information is power.
yeah,
Information and understanding is power. Why we do what we do is
yeah,
important to understand, and you're not going to do that by gleaning a two-minute YouTube video. You're going to do that by
absolutely.
doing the work, reading the works of the area and focus that you're in, and you're going to do that by informing yourself because everything has a point of origin. You know, any
Absolutely,
comments
Enolia.
on
Yeah,
that one?
yeah. As a dear partner of mine often used to say to me, some effort required. You can't
There you go.
just you can't just sit. Yes, you can open and let things come to you, yes, but you can't do that with everything. And to get to the point where that does work, you have to do the work first. So you have to get do the work. There's no other way. Yeah.
I want to even comment on that too, because people are like, I don't study, I just get the downloads. When we study, we are actually just for me, and I'll caveat this as me, when I study, what I am doing is I am taking my area of interest and I am laying out the map to train my mind so that when I get the downloads come focused on the area of interest that I have. Okay,
Exactly.
that become in the area of interest of my purpose. Okay,
Absolutely.
so it is important that we don't take academia or focus on the book reading and everything without the metaphysics. They're hand in hand because that's what makes it whole.
Yeah.
But you need one without the other is still a missing part.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's married.
Absolutely. And that's why we call it holy, right? Holy. Yeah. I mean, that's not mine. I've got that from a few places, but I like that idea of something being holy because it's whole. You got both sides of
Yeah,
the fence, you know,
both sides of the coin.
absolutely. So yeah, you if you want to check out the Universal Celestial Calendar, that'll give you a very good framework for your map, because your astrological birth chart is like the map you get given when you come and incarnate here, you know. So if anyone knows the zero card of the tarot, the Fool, you know, he's walking along, he's basically just incarnated on Earth, and he's got a little knapsack on his back, you know. Now, what he doesn't know is his higher self has put his birth chart in there, and he's just got to stop for a minute, right, on the side of the road in the sun and have a little drink of water and have a look what's in his bag. And he's like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's a round thing. It got one. And that's his map, right, through life.
Right. That's
So
right.
why do you want to stumble through life blindly, walking into walls and tripping over rocks and falling off cliffs and things, when you could just look at your map and it'd make things so much easier, you know?
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you, Litmus Freeman. Thank you again. And we will have you back because we want to learn more about your music. And we're going to have you back for the Trivium and Quadrivium conversation, which will prove
Great.
to be very, very interesting. Thank you for your wisdom and all that you shared. We're going to have in the description box the links for your 3 classes. And what a pleasure it was to have you.
For me too, always a pleasure, Enolia, always a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you. And if you liked what you saw, please subscribe. Please share this with someone. And please, please, please like us and come back for more. We'll see you soon. This has
Peace,
been...
love, and freedom.
Yes. This has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. Take care, everyone. Litmus?
Thank you, love. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Bye-bye.